In this video, I want to introduce you to a couple important tags when working with text inside of HTML. So first, we're going to take a look at the 6 types of headings in HTML. So in HTML, we have H1s, H2s, and then that keeps on continuing all the way up to H6. So, there would be H3, H4, and H5. So H1 is the biggest heading element that there is. H1 is like the most important heading, and then H6 is the least important heading. So let's put some things in these headings. So I'm just gonna say this is an H1, this is an H2, this is an H6. And if I head over to my browser, which I'll show you guys just a moment. All right. So let me zoom in a little bit. This is the browser, and this is what you see. So this was our H1 tag. This was the H2 tag. And then this was the H6 tag. So you can see how the size of headings becomes incrementally smaller. So this would be useful if you're creating sections inside your HTML, and for a reading, or a document for reading some information online. So you could have a big heading and then some subsections with maybe an H2 or an H3, and then you could have even smaller sections inside those subsections, which makes having 6 different headings super useful. And of course, you can change the size of these headings once we get to CSS. Okay. So let's now talk about some paragraphs. So there are several ways to display text inside HTML. So other than headings. So I'm just going to leave my H1 and move on to the P tag. If you watched the previous video, you would have seen me we use this in the previous video. So the P tag stands for paragraph, and it's basically it's just a paragraph. So inside the P tag, I'm just going to say this is a paragraph, and then containing information about paragraph, and then let's just type a period. And if I refresh my page, everything looks fine. Okay, we have text here, but what I want to do, I want to add another sentence and display it on another line. So if I go back to my HTML, I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to say, this is another line containing information. Okay. And then if we go back and refresh the page, you don't see it on another line. And if I just zoom back to normal, you still don't see it on another line. Why is this happening? Well, in HTML, white space, new lines are ignored completely. So inside our code, we can actually specify a new line like this. So the browser removes any extra spaces and lines when you're when you use a p tag. Okay, so how exactly would you write on multiple lines? And there are several solutions to this. I mean, there's probably the best solution. We're first going to take a look at a really common solution, just adding this BR tag, and it's what's called an empty tag, so you don't exactly have to close it. Okay, so you don't need to do /br. That is not necessary. We can just say br, and HTML will know what we're talking about. And if we reload the page, well, we see a new line, which is all working. And let's take a look at another approach to this. So let's see, can we use two p tags in order to do this? Well, so if we do this and refresh, oh sorry, I wasn't showing you the code. I just split the sentence into two p tags, the text, and then if we go back to our page, you see the heading, and then you see this, but there's a gap here. There's more of a gap than there was when we used the BR tag, which explicitly states there should be a line break. Okay, so that's another solution, and it really just depends on what you're going for. So let's take a look at a different solution that would be a little slightly weirder, but it should still work. And there are a couple nuances when working with this tag, but I mean we should be fine. So not p, sorry, pre. And what this is, it defines pre-formatted text. Okay. So when you do this, there's like a fixed width font, and whatever you type here, the spaces and line breaks are preserved, which is the complete opposite of the p tag. Okay, so pre, we can say like this is a sentence. Sorry. This is another sentence, and let's go back to our page, and this is what you see. Of course, they're on separate lines, and the reason I believe there's a tab there is because I put a tab in my thing. Yes. Okay, so that's so of course you can't this weird indenting when working with the pre tag. So this is what you would see when you do this. There's another line for weird reasons. Okay, so now let's talk about some ways you can format your text. So we have a couple like stylistic tags that are pretty cool. So let's delete some of this. We can delete our H1. That's not really important anymore. And let's create some bold text. Okay. So we can do that with the B tag, and we can say this tag is bold. And if we go to our page, wait 1 sec, thank you. Okay, if we go to our page, this is what you see. And this just means that our text is bold. And let's see another way of doing bold, but it's slightly different, using a different tag. And this is the strong tag. And it has similar effects. You can see the page didn't exactly change. So this is strong and bold. Strong bolds the text, but they're semantically different. Okay. So let's italicize our text now. And of course you can mix these with p tags. I'll show you that in a little bit. So let's get an I tag, which stands for italicize. I'm going to say this text is italic. Refresh, and we see italic text. Okay. So, of course, of course, we had like this alternative to bold, so we're gonna have an alternative to the I tag. And what that alternative is the M tag, which stands for emphasis. And again, it has similar effects, but the thing about an EM tag is that screen readers, when they're speaking the words on the screen, they emphasize anything in an EM tag. And I tags, well, they're typically used to like indicate terms that are very technical and like other languages, names, stuff like that. Okay, so there's another one. There's a couple others. Styling. There's one small tag which is used to display text in small. Oh, yep, and you can see the effect of that. And for the next example, I'm gonna merge this with a key tag. So key tag and say example for the mark tag. And around this mark word, I'm gonna use the mark tag. So what you can do, you can nest. Of course, you can nest things inside of key tags, all the stylistic stuff, and everything would do the exact same. So let's take a look at the mark tag, and you can see that the font size is slightly bigger than the small, which makes the small pretty effective, and that's the mark tag is highlighted. Okay, so then if we do, so if we want to strike through in our text for whatever reason, we can say example for the strike through tag, and it's not SRT, it's pretty weird. It's del, and I believe it's used to like symbolize that something's been deleted from the page. There you go. That's what it looks like. Okay, so if you need a strike through tag, like that, and then because it's used to symbolize something's been deleted, you can always say we can add a int tag, which stands for insertion. We need a space here. Yeah. Okay. So back to our thing. It'll be underlined, which is underline. Okay. So if you're working with chemical elements or footnotes, things like that, we have subscript and superscript as well. So let's use that line, and let's say subscript example, and we're going to say H. We're going to do the chemical formula for H2O, which is water. So we need to do the sub tag, sub 2, and then O. And we'll see some nicely formatted subscript. And if we want to work with like a footnote, we'll say something like, I don't know, say something like recondite, super, and then you can say like 1, I guess. And then you would be able to scroll down to the bottom, see the 1 and be like, oh, it's a footnote, which I guess could be helpful for reading things. Okay, so before we do that, before we end, I want to show 2 more, which are used for quotes. Okay, and I think these and the ones I showed before are the most important if you're doing something with like a lot of writing, reading, stuff like that. So often when you're writing, you want to use quotes. So let's do a block quote tag. Block quote. Okay, so let's say okay. And just to make it a little bit easier to tell what that actually is, I'm gonna include a P. Here is a quote from a very intelligent person. And if we take a look, that's what it says, which is pretty cool. Okay, so block quote might not be the most like the best thing for one-line quotes. So let's remove this, and we're gonna add a Q tag, which is gonna stand for a one-line quote. And here, I want you to notice I'm not typing any quotes here, but when I go to the page, you're gonna see quotes, which is pretty cool. Okay, so that's, in my opinion, all the fundamental writing things. I think that's all the fundamental text tags that you can use inside HTML. So I'm gonna leave you off with the knowledge of HTML comments, which have a weird syntax. I have no clue why. And we can just say that. So a comment is basically comments basically something that won't be displayed on the page. It's just there for people who are looking at the source code so that they actually know what's happening. So you can explain what each line does. And I mean, in HTML, it's not as useful, I'd say. But I mean, HTML is pretty easy to understand. But once you're working with like scripting and programming languages, comments can become really useful. All right, that's it. Goodbye.